everybody, to Sylvie's run cast with no running. So in case you guys are catching up on what's going on with me, my shin split open again. I think this is the 4th time in my last fight, and they stitched it up ringside, no problem. Got home and it was like terribly infected. So I, after a couple of days, went to the hospital and have basically been going in and out of the hospital for over a week now. They clean my wound every day. They had to take the stitches out. It's like basically a big cavity. So they rinse it out, keep it really clean. Then they pack it full of gauze that's like soaked in this very heavy duty medicine that also has the word amino in it. So I'm wondering if it like helps with cell regeneration, which is kind of interesting. So it has to keep everything inside there kind of moist. Sorry about that word. So they pack that in there and then they cover the whole thing, and basically I've just walking around with this like wad of gauze in my leg for more than a week now. So the point of this, the reason I'm talking about this again, and the reason I'm have any kind of update about this at all, is that I'm incredibly annoyed that the doctor has not been able to stitch it yet. And when I went to see the nurses today who clean out the wound, their job is to do the wound care, she was very positive and optimistic. She was like, I think the doctor's going to be able to stitch this tomorrow. I had to start eating very high protein in order to kind of like promote more cell regeneration and basically tissue growth, because there's a cavity in the shin, which is maybe why it keeps busting open, is that it's had this kind of like hole or gap underneath it this whole time. So when you pop the top, it already has this cavity underneath. So hopefully this will solve the problem in a more persistent way. But it's got more meat in there. And I know that's super gross sounding, but Kevin and I were laughing at the hospital today that I'm like Frank in Hellraiser, kind of like constituting growing meat as I'm like coming back to my healing. So that actually makes me feel really good, because I get to see the doctor again tomorrow, and if he stitches it for me, I'll be really excited, because that's like the whole next like launching pad to actually recovering. But again, why I'm talking about this is that I was talking to the nurse today as she was like rinsing out, flushing out my wound and like scrubbing around in there. I have a number of different, I don't have the same nurse every day, but now I've seen the same ones a couple of times each. There's this one who's really young. She actually reminds me of myself a little bit in that she's like a little bit sadistic. She scrubs in there harder than anyone else. And she's not trying to hurt me. She is like actually trying to clean it out, but she really like, it's like she's scrubbing a floor or something in there. She's very aggressive, and none of the other nurses are like that. When I was a kid, I'm like a scab picker. I like really like medical care, a little bit nurse ratchety, something like this. My oldest brother is a skateboarder, like longboarding, and he biffed it hard on his longboard once and just scraped the crap out of his knee. It was really disgusting. And he called me up to the bathroom upstairs in our house that had a tub, because he had to like clean it out, and he was like, Bo, my nickname's Bo. He's like, Bo, I can't do this myself because I'm gonna be too tender with myself, so you have to scrub this for me. And I was like salivating. I was so excited that I got to like get to scrub in there. And he totally couldn't hack it, and it was totally a like bait and switch where he asked me to do it and then couldn't handle me cleaning it. So I only got to do it for like 20 seconds or something, but I was really excited about it. This nurse is kind of like that. The one I had today, very sweet, older, very gentle, nice bedside manner. And I was telling her, because she's like, did you get these stitches here? And I was like, no, I got them up ringside in Buriram. And then they got infected within a day, and I came down here and the doctor took them out, and she's like, okay. And I was like, I don't blame the ringside doctor. Like, I don't think that she actually did anything wrong. I was like, I've been thinking about it, and I actually think it's my own fault that these stitches got infected. I haven't had infections before, and I've had a lot of stitches. But the reason I think it's my fault, and maybe I should talk to my therapist about me thinking everything is my fault, but the reason I think this one actually is my fault is that and I was telling the nurse this, because I grew up in Colorado, the climate there is really dry, so wounds really just don't get infected, and you heal really fast because of the dry climate. So like if you scrape yourself, like my brother's knee, like it scabs over really fast, and it almost feels as though you would have to try to get an infection in Colorado. You know, we even have the altitude, so like the oxygen levels are something that people go to in order to heal and stuff like that. So like I didn't grow up thinking that wounds would get infected. Like it just requires very, very little care to deal with wounds in Colorado. I'll get back to you in this a second. So like I know infections are possible, but it just really seemed the way that I grew up, it's just not on my consciousness to like really worry about it. And all the time I've been living in Thailand, I've had staph, I've had ringworm, I've had all kinds of things, but I've not had an infected cut. Like I've not had an infected wound before. So it's really not something that was like on my mind. It was just kind of like, try to not let it get infected kind of thing, like this very loose thing. And when I was talking to the nurse and I was telling her this, I'm like, the way I grew up with this climate, I don't think about how easy it is to get an infection in this climate. And she was like, she's like, all of Southeast Asia, she's like, it is breeding ground for bacteria. And she's like, on top of that, it's rainy season. So you have an even higher chance of infection. And so I was talking to Kevin about this, trying to think of like what I did this time that isn't even necessarily different from other times, but what I think I did to cause this infection. So you're not supposed to let your stitches touch water at all for the first 24, 48 hours. This is really annoying because you can't shower. You sometimes have like this gauze like stitched onto your head if you're cut on the head. You have to wear the bandage on your shin. Can't touch water. You have to like hang your leg out of the shower while you're trying to clean yourself off. And I got stitched ringside, and then I went into the bathrooms. This was a temple. So the bathrooms are kind of like a porta potty type thing, but it's permanent. It's just cement blocks. There's like a tub of water that you like turn on the faucet on the side of the wall to fill it, and then you use that with another bucket to flush the toilet, to rinse yourself off, any of these things. It's like a shower slash how you flush a toilet. And these bathrooms were gnarly. Like, I don't think they're always like that, but this was in the middle of a festival over a period of days, which is something that temples do. It's a very social event, but it also raises money for the temple. So because this had been going for a couple of days, these toilets were gnarly because hundreds of people have been going through them for like 2 days, and there's probably not someone cleaning them all the time. And so they were kind of like backed up and nasty and whatever. So not only was I grossed out by like just kind of the state of the toilets, but I have not, in the 12 years I've lived here, I have not registered. Is that Anna? Little baby. I have not registered with myself that, like, again, where I grew up, where I'm from, most places in America the water is potable. In Thailand, nowhere is the water potable. Like, you cannot drink water out of the faucet anywhere. And my brother, when he was visiting, he was like, can we brush our teeth with it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, you shower with it. You can totally rinse your mouth and spit it out like this. But there are many Thai people who don't. There are Thai people who use bottled water. And something that I never, like, I saw it happen, and I never really thought about, was that Thai people, in all of the gyms I've been to, when they rinse their face, they use bottled water. And then anytime I've gotten a scrape or a cut or like something that needed to be cleaned at the gym, always, they come to me with one of those sterile bottles of water to rinse it out. You never rinse a cut with tap water. And this is not something that I've like internalized in the time I've been here. I totally, like, I got bit by a kitten that I was trying to catch for tapia, and I went and I like rinsed my hand in the sink, and he came and he like gave me the squirt bottle, and he's like, you need to wash it with this. And it didn't even occur to me that like the water out of the tap is not clean. So like, don't rinse open wounds with it. So anyway, I get my stitches ringside, and then I go into these nasty bathrooms to rinse myself off and change my clothes. I'm not dumb. I didn't pour water on my stitches they were covered at this point. They had been stitched up, covered in gauze. It's got like a bandage around it. So I have to like hang that over to the side while I'm basically like rinsing off my arms and a little bit of my torso because I'm covered in Vaseline and oil and this kind of thing. I'm just trying to get like some of it off so that I can put on different clothes and get in the car. And I'm thinking to myself that like, while I'm conscious enough to like not put water on my cut, I'm not aware of it enough to think about how what I'm thinking about now when I shower is that if I rinse my body, that water is going to drip down. That's how gravity works. And it's possible that some of that water that was on my torso, even though I'm not washing my legs, dripped down and got into the gauze. And I just didn't even notice it because it's like literally just droplets of water and they're just running down. It didn't make the gauze wet. It wasn't that much water. It was just kind of like a, you know, dripping kind of thing. And I don't know that this happened. This is just my suspicion. And while I'm telling Kevin about it, he's like, this sounds incredibly likely because it got infected so fast. Like by the time I woke up the next morning, it was already, I couldn't really walk on it. That's like a pretty significant infection. So basically today, talking to this nurse, being like, I think I'm the reason this thing got infected, it was really a wake-up call to me in my own realization of how much care you have to take to not get infected instead of like, just don't be lazy because that's what causes infection kind of thing. So like, in summary, I think that this, I don't know, this isn't like a, now I'm scared, I have to be so careful, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think this is going to change a significant degree how I deal with my day-to-day life. But because I'm someone who has experienced a lot of cuts, who will get cut in fights and this kind of thing, I think that my appreciation for the precautions that one has to take just because of like the climate, like it's not anyone's fault, it's not like you know, the doctor did a bad job or like I was stupid or something like that. It's like I just didn't appreciate the risk fully of like how easily one can get an infection. And I think that this is a good warning for anyone who's coming to Thailand from wherever you're from, is that like you just don't know how big of a risk that kind of thing is based on the difference in climate and like that kind of thing. I can't think of an analogous example of like if you're, I don't know, like if you're from America and you like to pet stray dogs, feed stray dogs and that kind of thing, we don't have a whole lot of rabies in America. Like that's something that we have under control pretty well. There is endemic rabies in Thailand, and there are all kinds of great organizations and foundations and stuff who try to address that. They'll do like vaccination campaigns. Here in Pattaya, anytime a dog shows up with rabies, there are multiple organizations that will like go out to the area that it was near and just vaccinate every animal near there, whether they're owned by people and are like domestic animals or whether they're kind of just animals on the street. So they try to keep it under control kind of thing. But it's the kind of thing that you literally just don't think about. Or like malaria being kind of endemic in a place. You're like, oh, mosquitoes aren't really that dangerous. And then in some places, they are very, very dangerous and that kind of thing. The thing about water, I think, kind of is the biggest impact to me. Is that like, I'm pretty sure that when Kevin and I were in Bangkok, when we got this like really bad conjunctivitis, when we were staying there and training with Karahat and Charchai and over at Dejrat. So it could have come from any of those showers, but we were pretty sure from reading about it that we got this conjunctivitis infection from water, because you can get like meningitis and stuff like that from shower water, from like group showers. I remember when I first went to college, there was like this big warning. It's just broad. It's like anywhere in America when you go to college with these like dorms and this kind of thing, meningitis from the showers is a risk. It's just a thing that you kind of know about. I never encountered that. No one ever got that in my college, but it's still something that you need to be like aware of. And so this whole concept to me of like giving much greater respect to the non-sanitized scenario of water is, it's not scary, it's just something that I'm much more aware of and kind of conscious of now, given this infection and given how I've come to kind of understand that this was probably my own doing, just through being a little bit careless, you know? So that's the realization I had that I'm kind of sharing in this non-run cast. And again, it's not to scare anybody. Like, I don't think that you need to be like terrified of coming to Thailand. Oh, what if I get an infection kind of thing. It's like, no, just like when you have a situation like, you know, staph is something that happens in gyms all around the world. It doesn't necessarily come from someone else. You can give yourself staph, which is really an interesting thing, because it like lives on your skin and then your skin breaks and it gets inside and blah, blah, blah. So like, just be aware of it. So in all the ways that I was like, this isn't an infection, even though I can't walk, even though it's hot to the touch, even though it's oozing pus. Oh wait, now maybe I think that is infected. That kind of thing, that given the likelihood of infection here, looking more for early signs of something rather than waiting for it to be a big problem, and understanding the precautions one can take given the high risk is the way to look at it, rather than like being scared or like being paranoid. Like, have a healthy paranoia in that you're looking out for something, but not a paranoia of like, I can't do anything, I can't go anywhere, and I don't want to train here because I might pick something up. You might pick something up anywhere. Just be a little careful about it. That's what Sylvie's gonna do. That's what I've learned from this experience. And I'm really, really hoping I get my new stitches tomorrow, so fingers crossed for me, please.